Well, hello and welcome to everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today at our virtual opening day here at Virtual Open Day at Newvic. Today we've got a crew of people with us to talk about the legal and government pathways. And what we're going to be doing, first of all, I just need to do a little bit of housekeeping with all of you. I just need to check from the attendees, the people that are with us today. Can you actually hear us okay? Can you just put your hands up and let us know if you can hear us? Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, and can I just ask if you can see us all okay as well? You can see the presentation all right, and you can see us? Excellent, fantastic. We're all good to go. Okay, so thanks again for joining us. Just a couple of things. The chat function's been disabled for the presentation today, but you'll notice down the bottom you do have the Q&A button. And what we ask you to do, if you've got any questions throughout the presentation that you might want to ask, please just put them in there and someone from the panel today will pick up on them and come back with a response to you. Okay, so the college is running lots of different sessions today. This is just one of the many. I think there's about 20 altogether. All of these will be are being recorded and they'll be available on the college website towards the end of next week, I think. So you'll be able to come back to this session if there's something you want to look at again, or if there's some other ones, other pathway presentations that you'd like to have a look at. Alongside that, the college website also has all of the links to the different subject presentations that have been done in the past. So if you want more details about a specific subject, you can look at that as well. Okay, so I'm going to hand over, first of all, to Esmeralda. Esmeralda, can you tell us a little bit about why students should study at Newvic? What sets us apart from other colleges?
So there's many reasons, really. Perhaps one of them is the level of subject expertise that we've got at college, because many sixth form colleges attached to a secondary school, which are part of a secondary school, the teachers there need to teach year 7, year 8, GCSE, A levels. At Newvic, we're all experts in our subjects. You will find A-level specialists, BTEC specialists, teachers with many years of expertise of teaching, examiners among GCSE, among A-level examiner for Spanish, and I've got that. I know that many of my colleagues are examiners as well, so there's a great level of expertise. We also have outstanding student support, and that was awarded by Ofsted. It's not just us telling us that you will find a great level of student support, but Oxford actually awarded that kind of title. You will find that you will have a personal tutor that will support you throughout your journey at Newvic. There's a lot of extracurricular activities that you can join, lots of them, really amazing amount of sports and games, all kind of things that you can join, book clubs, all sorts of things. So there's something for everyone, really, that you can do as well as your studies there. There's a variety of courses that we can offer. Other sixth form colleges have a smaller offer. They are smaller than us. We're one of the biggest sixth form colleges in London. So if something doesn't suit you, if you decide that the course that you were planning to do is perhaps not the best one for you, I'm sure we will find something else that will suit you and your career plan. So yeah, come and join us. It's a great place to be.
Thank you very much, Esmeralda. Okay. What we're going to do now, I'm just going to hear a little bit from Scott about different entry requirements to come to Newvic for the different subject levels.
Okay, so most of what we're dealing with on these courses for this particular pathway are A levels, and they require a minimum of 5 GCSEs. This is between grade 9 and 5. What you will find is that most courses require a minimum of grade 5 in GCSE English or maths. That can vary depending on the subject sometimes, but that's the average that you'll find across there. So we're looking at grade 5 for progression onto these A-level courses. Now, some A-level courses such as science and maths are more challenging and require higher grades in specific subjects. So you need to bear that in mind. If we're thinking about the broad range of subjects on this pathway, we'll be thinking about grade 5, sometimes as much as 6 in English for philosophy, But with some of those courses, you might find that the maths grade is slightly lower than a 5 as well. T levels, of course, the new thing coming in, these courses require a minimum of 5 GCSEs grade 9 to 4, including English and maths, and most courses there require a grade 5 or above in maths. For level 3 BTECs, these courses require a minimum of 4 GCSEs grades 9 to 4, and most courses also require a minimum of a grade 4 in GCSE English or maths. And then level 2 BTECs is 2 GCSEs grades 9 to 4 with a 3 in English or maths.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Scott. Okay, so this open day is a little bit different for us. So in the past, we've done sessions on specific subjects, which I've mentioned earlier, but today this is really focused on different pathways, different study routes. And Rob's going to give us a bit of detail about a couple of examples here. Rob?
Yeah, so really, thinking about, where you want to progress onto in the areas that you might be interested in going to university or, getting into career-wise, can really be informed by the different A-level pathways which you are thinking about, which you could choose from. So for example, if you're interested in something, like, if you're interested in a law degree, you could be thinking about law. Obviously, as an A-level, you get good, background towards, what it's like, regarding the legal profession and regarding, kind of, criminal law and, other aspects of law. But also, I think really importantly, one of the A-levels really respected by law colleges and law universities is history as well, because you're getting a lot of kind of critical thinking, critical understanding skills. You could combine that with an English literature. You could combine that with an English literature A-level in order to develop your written study, your written skills and your argument making skills and things like that. Or then if you're thinking, something like politics, is an area that you might want to get into in the future, thinking about, again, government and politics, obviously gives you this kind of subject knowledge, subject background. But again, history A-level really, really useful, in this area, because again, you're, with an area like politics, you're doing a lot of source work, you're doing a lot of critical thinking, and history is a really, really good subject to uncover some of those skills as well. And again, you can combine this, English literature is one of those subjects which goes in with a lot of different A-level pathways, but it could be something that you think about regarding a law area or a politics area, but then potentially one of the areas that we're thinking about with this pathway, with legal and government pathway, thinking about business. Business studies, and that can be combined well with, economics, or it can be combined with psychology in order to give you kind of full range of skills, and full range of, critical understanding, critical thinking, critical interpretation in order to progress you in that area. So, really regarding, the different areas of study which you might be thinking about later might well inform the subject choices which you're doing. And here are some suggestions which we've really put forward that you could use, to think about, how you're going to get on, not just in your A-level course, but also your progression afterwards.
Okay, national government administrative occupations.
Things like, so national government administrative occupations. So, here we're thinking about, working, if you're thinking of working for central government, if you're working for local government, things like, government and politics, history, English literature, these might combine well to help develop you towards a politics degree. Like I said previously, looking at, developing some subject specialism in the area which you're thinking about doing, potentially for a degree, potentially doing it further study, but then also what other subjects might go well with those. As you see in history is quite one which is coming into a lot of areas, and that's because you develop a lot of key critical source development, critical understanding skills and things like this. If you're thinking maybe of sociology degree, obviously, something like sociology A-level would be really helpful with this. It combines really well with other social sciences like psychology, or English literature. There are a range of vocational qualifications you can also do, which we also run at the college. So, you can do a combination of A-levels and vocational qualifications, vocational certificate as well. And then if you're interested in areas like linguistics, classics, we do have languages such as Spanish on offer, which you're able to do. You can combine these with other language subjects such as English literature as well. Or maybe if you're thinking about a psychology degree and, this is an area that you're thinking about, again, goes well with other social sciences like sociology, and then also, thinking about areas like, you could potentially combine that with another science like biology. So again, looking at some different areas that you're thinking potentially going into for further study, like I say, it might well inform the subject choices which you're going to be making at this level for A-level.
Great, thanks, Rob. Chris, have you got any thoughts on these two pathways that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess all that I'd really add to that is I'm, not meaning to speak with too much of an implicit bias here, but I would also like to suggest the relevance of philosophy for some of the pathways that we've looked at. So, for instance, looking at a legal and law pathway, you might sort of find a subject like that, which could prove beneficial there. So sort of looking at kind of logic, analytical thought, that kind of idea. So I'd just like to sort of make that a suggestion just on top of some of the subjects which are here, really. Especially as quite often you might find yourself in politics, actually doing some political philosophy and that kind of thing. So yeah, speaking with a bias, being a philosophy specialist myself, but still putting it out there.
Thanks, Chris. And Amina, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think most of it's been covered. Law is just, obviously I'm going to talk about law because that's my background. It's just one of those subjects that goes well with many other subjects. So people who are interested in going into law in the future, they don't have to feel like they need to do subjects A, B, C along with law. So there aren't any such requirements. And it's always best to, when you're thinking about subjects, think about subjects that firstly you would enjoy and secondly you think you could be good at. So keeping those two things in mind, I think that should be the basics when thinking about what subjects to do.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks very much. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to move on to our masterclass, and we've got, I think, Ezekiel, both, and you, Amina, with coming from the law background. Yes. We've set a bit of a task here. So Ezekiel, I'm going to let you and Amina lead on this one. I think
I put the case forward. So the cases that we cover in the first year when we're looking at a topic called strict liability, and it's something everybody can think about, because when we think of crimes, we always think, oh, it's somebody's fault, somebody did it deliberately. But sometimes you can actually commit an offence which you didn't do deliberately, you didn't have intention to do, and that's what the case of Harrow versus Shah is about. So shall I just read out the slide, Roger?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Okay, so the owners were aware and had informed staff not to sell lottery tickets to anyone under the age of 16. One of the staff sold a ticket to an underage boy, and the newsagents were fined by the council. The boy did not look underage, and the staff member had no intention to commit this offence. So it's just an example where sometimes offences are committed. The staff member working in this newsagent obviously had no intention. But sometimes you do get people who look much younger than their age, or people who look older than their age. And sometimes people go to the supermarket and maybe they want to buy alcohol, and the person could be 25 or 30 and they might look really young, and the sales assistant might ask for ID. When you're in that age range, you find it quite flattering, obviously. But when you're at the other age range, and we end up in situations like that. So I just wanted people to think about should people be prosecuted if they had no intention to commit the crime, like the staff member in this case, who obviously didn't do it deliberately, had this underage boy in front of him, thought he looks older, sold him the lottery ticket, and just to kind of get an idea of whether people are more on the prosecution side or the defense side. So do you support the newsagent or the council? So if you're the kind of person who's first instinct is to jump in support of the newsagent, then you're probably someone who would be interested in working on the defense side. Whereas if you're thinking that the council, this person should pay for what they've done, then you're probably going to be more inclined to go towards the prosecution side. And lastly, why is it important to have such laws in society? So it kind of like just gives us an overview that it's not always about fault and who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes we need to have certain laws to regulate society in a certain way.
Zico, have you got anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so pretty much Amina covered it, to be fair, in terms of the kind of things that we will look at when you are studying the course. So again, this just gives you an insight in terms of like, you know, something as simple and that you don't usually relate or associate with law, you know, it can actually still be, you know, it still is affected and it still is impacted by the law. So often we could go into Tesco. I know, for instance, I get asked the question as well sometimes. I still get asked, can I see your ID? To be fair. And, you know, you don't think that, you know, if they don't do that, you know, they could potentially be in at the other end of the criminal justice system. So again, it's just kind of taking that into consideration. But I'll say, yeah, most of the points Amina covered it in this case.
Okay, thanks. Scott, I can see you're itching to say something there.
No. Believe it or not, my days of being asked for ID are behind me. I can see where the newsagent would, you know, not be particularly keen to ask every last customer under a certain age if they can have their ID. I'm okay with buying lottery tickets these days.
And Chris, what about you? Have you got anything, any take on this?
Well, as somebody similarly to Ezekiel, who probably still finds myself being ID'd, I am I'm probably on a similar side of the fence to him there. But yes, sympathetic, I think, towards the newsagent. Having worked in retail myself before, actually, so sympathetic to that kind of error.
Okay, and Rob?
I'm just going to be controversial here for the sake of it. And I'm going to say the law is the law and it needs to be followed. And we live in a society of laws and we live under the rule of law, which is a very important political principle. So, you know, regardless of whether you intended to break the law or not, you broke the law. So, you know, that, you know, if you didn't mean to do it, I'm sorry, but you still done it. We've got a system of laws in this society. That's it, my take on it.
Okay, that's a very
Prosecution.
Definitely the prosecution for you, Rob. I can see that. I mean, where did this case go? What was the sort of outcome from this?
So the outcome was that they went along with what Rob said. So it doesn't matter that, you know, it wasn't intended. The newsagents were fined by the council, and I guess, you know, from that point onwards, you know, it would probably make them more careful, more vigilant, and they probably next time they would put that time and effort into checking a person's ID. You know, if they were only checking a couple of people's prior to being fined, maybe after that they would check every single person who they had even the slightest doubt on. So, you know, there could be a good implication to these situations that they adhere to higher standards from that point onwards.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so very interesting activity. We were going to look at something to do with politics. I'm just going to ask Rob to throw something out here. It's a very interesting time for politics, Rob. Shall we say the world is going through some interesting change. It's sort of quite rapid pace at the moment, not just here, but all over the place. It makes it sort of an exciting time to study politics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it certainly is, you know, and you know, we've seen this, you know, in the last few years. If I cast my mind back studying, or rather teaching politics with students about 5-6 years ago, students were saying, oh, everything's kind of so boring and, you know, so on and so forth. And then we had this EU referendum, and then, you know, that kind of, you know, started stirring things up, and we thought, you know, okay, like come 2020, everything's going to have calmed down because you know, we've had the election, the Conservatives won the election. They said they're going to introduce Brexit. And, you know, there was a sense that we were going to kind of hit a relative level of normality. But of course, that's not what we've seen, because we've seen coronavirus obviously come through in the last, 12 months or so. And of course, that has really knocked countries around the world for six, economically, socially, politically. And then on top of that, you've got what I would like to kind of call the kind of Trump factor. Trump has been in power in the United States in the last, 4 years. And what we've seen with the way that Trump has used the presidency, he's used the presidency to kind of sow more division, within society, regarding, issues, such as, immigration, issues such as, economic equality and things like this. And of course, the world does seem to be in kind of quite a constant churn at the moment. Added to this, we had last spring, the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement, which obviously, kind of revealed or highlighted, some of the racial injustices and racial inequalities which have been occurring in our societies. And, in terms of trying to make sense of all of that, I'm given a platform here to make a little bit of a plug for politics, that you get to study some of these issues in politics, and in this, kind of time of turmoil. I think it's really, really interesting. It's a really, really interesting time to study politics. If we look at what happened this week, the big political story and the big political event happening worldwide was the inauguration of Joe Biden, which was very interesting. I think it really demonstrated how, the different views are being cemented amongst different, social groups and different areas of society at the moment. The fact that on his first day, he introduced 17 new executive orders. So he undone 17 laws which Trump had put into place, and this concerned things like COVID, the action on the COVID situation, action on climate change, very, very important. Bringing the United States back into the Paris Climate Agreement. What else did we have? We had he also revoked the Muslim travel ban, which Trump had introduced. Again, a very divisive policy, which kind of pitted, sections of the population against each other, kind of put the blame for some of America's problems on immigration and immigration from particular countries. So, there's a whole raft of policies which Biden introduced already in the first 24 hours of him coming to power, which demonstrates how how divided it seems politics has become. And that's not just in America, because if you cast your mind back 12 months, in this country also, we had an election where there were two very different views of the country being put forward between Labour and the Conservatives. I think it's really, really important time to study politics at this moment in time. Really, really important in understanding some of the things which are going on around us, and finding out how the political system works and what you can do in order to get involved to change it. Thanks, Rod.
Okay, no worries. And why is it a really important time to study law, Amina?
Very tied in with everything Rob has said, because whenever there's a change, it needs to be implemented, and it can't be implemented unless there's a law on it. So, even in this country, all the new laws with regards to COVID, sometimes they just start off as suggestions or as things that we were expected to follow, but until Parliament sits down and passes it as a law, you don't really technically have to follow it. So there was a lot of fines that had been given out, for example, but I think some of the fines had been given even before it had been passed on law, so they didn't count. So for anything to really mean something systematically in this country, it has to be made into law. So we have to wait for Parliament to go through the process. And we can see these days, Parliament is going through a process much faster because of the current situation. Whereas in the past, there have been laws that have, we've had to wait months or sometimes over a year for a certain law to go through the whole process. But because of the current situation, the process, they're speeding things up because it has to become law. If we expect the public and if we're expecting people to follow something, nobody's going to really respect it until it is law.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, we've just about come to the end of our time today, folks. Thank you very much for your...
Sorry, Rod, could I just answer the question which came in the Q&A?
Of course you can, Rob.
Because
Yeah,
it was
sure.
about politics as well. Does the politics course cover UK politics only or politics from other countries as well? In the first year, the focus is on the UK. So we look at UK politics, political parties in the UK. We look at UK government, how Parliament works, how, you know, the powers of the Prime Minister. So there is very much a UK focus in the first year, but in the second year, we move on to global politics, you know, where we look at, you know, lots of different global case studies of you know, political situation in you know, countries around the world, not just amongst the great powers like USA, Russia, China. We do look at those countries, which is really interesting, but then there's a whole range of smaller countries, you know, that we look at, you know, Ivory Coast, South Africa, Democratic Republic of Congo, in Africa, in Asia, we look at Vietnam, we look at the India-Pakistan relationship a little bit, we look at things happening in the Middle East, and then in South America as well, we look at things like we look at places like Brazil, we look at places like Venezuela. So there's a whole range of different countries who you're going to study in that second year. So it's really good if you're interested in, you know, getting a global perspective on politics.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks for picking that one up, Rob. I missed that in the Q&A. That's great. Okay, thanks everybody for coming along today. I hope for the people that have been here as part for the participants, there's quite a lot of you. I can see the numbers here, which is absolutely fantastic to have you with us. The applications for the college are now open, so you can apply at newvic.ac.uk/apply. Or if there's other questions that you want to ask, if something that hasn't been addressed here, or you've got some other queries, feel free to email advice@newvic.ac.uk, and someone will come back to you with some responses. Don't forget that this will be on the website next week. Please share it with your friends, get other people to watch it, explore what the other pathways are as well, because there's lots and lots of interesting information there for you to help you out. I hope you found this beneficial and enjoyed the presentation, and I thank the panelists for coming along today and for their insight into the different pathways. And we all look forward to seeing you at NUVIC very soon. So take care and stay safe, and thanks very much for joining us, and bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.